To the extent that we live our lives in a manner that is consistent with the truth in our heart, we thrive.
Welcome to the Meier Clinics podcast, and you just heard a quote from one of your hosts, Dr. Lisa Day. Join our licensed clinical professionals from various backgrounds as they discuss fascinating mental health topics with a wide range of guests. Meier Clinics is a Christian counseling organization with multiple clinics nationwide dedicated to treating the whole person, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Welcome to our listening family. We thank you for joining us.
We're so excited to have you here and have you join us. My name is Lilla Marie, and I have...
Truly embracing your complexities means rejecting anything that can harm who you are, like smoking cigarettes, which can damage nearly every part of your body. Tap the banner to see more. This free life, freedom to be tobacco-free.
The privilege of being present at the headquarters of Meier Clinics here in Wheaton, Illinois. And with me, I have the directors from all the various regions across the United States. Several of them were willing to join me on a podcast and talk about what it's been like to be a Christian involved in the mental health community and involved in mental health counseling for, I don't know, up to, I've heard, 27 years. It's pretty amazing the amount of experience that we have represented in this room. And it's always a privilege to gather together with my colleagues. So here next to me, I have Brad. Brad, will you go ahead and introduce yourself and give a brief overview of who you are and what you do?
I'll be happy to. Thank you, Lilla. My name is Brad Kahle. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I am the National Executive Director here at Meier Clinic. I'm excited to be here today.
Thank you, Brad. Joanne.
And my name is Joanne Crough. I am a licensed counselor and the director of the Pennsylvania Meier Clinics. We're located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the South Hills of Allegheny County.
Thank you, Joanne. Kim Hill.
Hi, Lilla. This is Kim Hill, and I'm a licensed clinical psychologist at Meier Clinics in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I specialize in marriage and family counseling.
Fantastic. Angie?
Hi, Lilla. This is Angie Witman. I work in Kansas, in Goodland and Colby, Kansas, and I am a licensed clinical psychotherapist and a licensed clinical marriage and family therapist.
Fantastic. Angie and we've been talking on the phone for several years, and I'm so pleased to have you here on the podcast. And Kyle.
I'm Kyle Pontius. I'm the director at the Laguna Hills, California Clinic, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. One of the things that I think was so interesting in every conversation that I've had with therapists who have been in the Christian field for so long is to find out how your faith informs your practice. Occasionally I come across Christians who come in who are skeptical about what they call psychobabble, and who really would like to know, how does Christianity support psychological principles, or what scripture can you take a look at, or what scripture do you use to communicate with your client that really we're coming from a perspective that is godly and that is supported biblically. Brad, would you be willing to answer that first?
I will certainly try. Well, I find that many of the clients that come to us here at Meier are Christians, and they're looking for an informed Christian perspective on therapy. You know, one of the things I find is that many people come in with some distorted perceptions of what therapy is, and sometimes a distortion of how they perceive even Christianity. For example, a common sort of misperception I've run across is a client coming in and talking about how they get frustrated or they get angry and how that's wrong or sinful to get angry.
Right.
And I will correct some of that thinking. I'll talk to them about a verse such as Ephesians 4:26 that states, "Be angry and sin not. Don't let the sun go down in your anger."
Right.
Kind of explaining to them that this is a verse where we're actually commanded to be angry. The Greek is in the imperative tense. It's a command. We are actually commanded to be angry and not sin in our anger. It's not so much the anger that's the problem, but the way that we approach the anger that can become problematic or not. So I try to dispel some of those beliefs that these emotions or that particular emotion is wrong somehow, and we can look at how we actually address it and deal with it more effectively.
That's such a common one too,
Mm-hmm.
I find, and with anxiety too. In Psalms it says, if you're anxious, and the word there for anxious is really excited or upset or overwhelmed, go and lay on your bed and meditate and rest. And the word meditate there is that deep breathing, right?
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah. Focus your thoughts.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Focus in. Excellent. Kim, do you have a particular direction that you like to go with clients that are coming to you questioning Christianity and the role of Christianity in psychotherapy?
Well, most significantly, I would say that when I do work with, obviously, people that are, more in the secular world and not believers, that they have concerns that they express sometimes early on with, is there going to be any points of division that would, in any way hinder our ability to work together? And clearly, obviously, I respect their belief systems and whatever their decisions may be. But I will say the most significant thing I do, whether I'm working with a person in the secular world that's not a believer or whether it's a Christian, is I am always evaluating a person's support system and encouraging them to obviously be stepping into more solid honesty, truthful accountability, and very encouraging levels of support. So whether it's with a non-believer or whether it's with a believer, that is typically some of my earliest points of trying to really encourage not living this life of isolation, but building whatever that support system may be that will help them to make wiser decisions in their life and obviously to receive encouragement and accountability as well.
Yeah, and so many studies show that when we have somebody in our lives, anywhere from, what is it? I think you pointed out to me, Kim, that we need to have between 3 to 8 people in our lives actively involved to have help with that.
Well, and that's why I'm such a firm believer too in offering supportive group therapies, even for people that, again, aren't believers, but supportive group therapies in lieu of what some believers may be obviously doing for their very personal life groups and having people walk through life with them. I try to bring people together and very much, a mixed group of people, whether it's believers or non-believers and different seasons of life and all of that, bringing people together. And it actually works beautifully together when there is, respect for one another.
That's awesome. Joanne, you're on the East Coast, which is exactly the opposite of where Seattle is. So I think that you might have a different perspective on that from what I have.
Well, what I've noticed a lot of times, I think you're right, Lilla, many of the people that I see actually come in feeling like they shouldn't need to come to counseling.
Ugh.
That there's something so terribly wrong and perhaps spiritually wrong with them that they need to resort to something so dramatic as counseling. And that's one of the things that I really try to correct and equalize and normalize, because it is actually part of Scripture. Jesus himself said, we were not created for life in this world. We were created for something more, and we will have trouble here. And when it happens, it can be more than we can handle on our own. And it really kind of dovetails with what Kim was saying, that we need that support structure. We need to be connected to other people. When we do it on our own, it's not good.
I so hear that. Yeah. Kyle, would you like to throw in some of your opinions on this?
Well, Joanne, that's good to bring up that particular piece. I'm reminded of the Westminster Confession of Faith that distinguishes 2 different kinds of sin. One is the kind that we typically think of, that is a transgression of the law, when we intentionally do something that God tells us not to do. The other is just the simple state of not being perfect. And or in the words of the confession, it's want of conformity. And that's where we find ourselves quite a bit, is in this fallen world, not being perfect and struggling with all that goes along with that. Many people will ask specific questions concerning how I work with, or how I would work with them in their Christian faith. And it just kind of depends upon what that specific question is. I work using cognitive behavior therapy many times. And Romans 12, verse 2 says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." That fits right in with cognitive therapy and taking a look at the perceptions that become automatic when we encounter various events in life. And they need renewing as we analyze those and come up with alternative ways of perceiving life, and perhaps adopting God's perspective in viewing our own situations.
Kyle, that's I think it's a very good point. We do run across so many people that struggle with these sort of misperceptions or cognitive distortions, especially around Christianity. And I think you were mentioning perfectionism, people that feel like they need to be perfect, or they need to be righteous in a way that's we kind of miss the grace point, that we are people that live by grace, and we're not going to be perfect. And I find myself often trying to draw people back to the point that, we need Jesus because we need his grace. We're not going to be perfect in this lifetime. And the more we can accept that and work with some of these, whether it's a cognitive distortion or any other kind of struggle that we have, relationship difficulty, it's just really important to see that underneath all of that, we need God's grace.
Exactly.
Angie, you're working out in the middle of the cornfields of Kansas. You must run into people that know you from prior life experiences. How do you find yourself working to integrate your faith, and what does that look like for you?
Well, I worked for a community mental health center there for 7 years before I went on board with Meier Clinics. I've been with them now for 20. And at first it was pretty challenging. I wasn't quite sure how to integrate my spiritual beliefs with my clinical practice. I didn't really have anybody to help me out there because I was the Lone Ranger, but I prayed a lot about it, and I eventually was able to start integrating. And now I couldn't separate the two. I would not be able to go back to just secular counseling at this point. It's just they have to go together in order for people to be able to see a hope in their situation and to be able to make progress. I have a few people who come in who are not Christians, and normally they tolerate Christian counseling pretty good. There's a few times when I can't broach the subject, but most of them will let me. But I see so much difference in the clients who are Christians that let Christian principles start working, as far as how much progress they make, how much hope they have. It's amazing the difference.
Yeah, I can totally testify to that too, certainly. Now, over the years, there has been a difference, and there have been many changes in the mental health field in the United States. One of the changes that we're seeing really strongly is with insurances and working to get people the services that they need, with the insurance companies needing the amount of paperwork that they're needing. And how does that intersect with being a Christian counselor? Have you Kim, have you found anything that intersects with that in a way that's either positive or detrimental to providing the service for the client?
Well, I think practically speaking, something again, as such a strong proponent for that relational support system and not walking through life alone and making poor decisions and suffering as a result of the consequences. I again am a strong promoter of bringing people together, and so supportive group therapies have been a really affordable for people, whether they do private pay or whether insurance reimburses for that. And again, bringing people together in a safe setting where they can perhaps learn to trust and feel respected in ways that they've never been actually able to experience that before, and learn some healthy boundary skills on that. Group has really provided, I think, a wonderful avenue of healing on a lot of different levels.
Hi, this is Dr. Paul Meier of the Meier Clinics. Our Christian counselors across the country have a goal of helping all those who come to us to become what God has called them to be. If you're in a situation where you're not at peace within yourself, or you just feel like there's joy that's missing in your life, we can come alongside to help you obtain peace and joy.
This message is sponsored by the Meier Clinic Foundation, a nonprofit Christian counseling ministry. The number is 1-888-7-CLINIC, 1-888-7-CLINIC.
Well, that's very true, because community is really where we find healing most effectively and really the best. I think that's the relationships we build, the feedback that we get, the accountability, and group therapy just lends itself to that very nicely.
I can see that. Joanne, how about you? Have you experienced any differences over the years with providing services? Anything that's been difficult for you, or something that you've found to be incredibly enjoyable within the services that you provide?
Well, for me, it is a joy to be able to share my faith, Christian principles with my clients. As a matter of fact, I don't think I would be a therapist today if it wasn't for me being able to combine what I learned in graduate school and what I learned also in college, as I was a psychology major, and connecting it with Christian principles. The two go together so perfectly that it is, it's just, like I said, it didn't make any sense to me until I could put the Christian perspective with the psychology to see how I could possibly be of any help to somebody.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the benefits of working with a Christian organization. I mean, when I stand up and present Meier Clinics with other professionals in the Seattle area, I say we are unabashedly Christian, and we will work with you also if you find that your spiritual needs are different. Obviously, we're professionals, but I am so pleased to be able to work with a Christian agency that provides such amazing services across the nation, as you can hear within this context. And finally, I'd just like to hear from each of you. One of the things that has impacted your own life the most in this process of working in mental health as a Christian. For myself, what has impacted me has been the ability to combine my theological training and see how it's so integrated with psychological training and psychological principles. And it has revolutionized my own experiences within my relationships personally. And then being able to bring that into the counseling session I've seen some powerful things that have happened, and that has changed my life radically. Brad? Sure.
I think the thing that impacts me the most is I look at what we do I look at what I do as a psychologist or as therapists very much as a ministry. I can't separate the two. I think when I started out in this field, I went to a secular graduate school. I started out as a psychologist who was a Christian. And in the 27 years now being at Meier Clinic, working in a Christian setting, I can't separate the two. My practice, my commitment to people and to helping them and helping lead them to healing and health it's a ministry. I cannot separate the two, and it means so much to me to be able to do it in this environment where I'm free to be myself, to have my faith, to believe what I believe, and share that with others. I don't impose that on others, but I love having the freedom to be able to share that with them and help them work through their struggles in the context of biblical principles.
Fantastic. Kyle.
Wow, that's a big question. I decided, or didn't decide, I was called to ministry when I was in high school, having some fantastic experiences of God working in my life during the summers while I was on staff at a summer camp. And that has morphed over the years. And after college, I went to seminary and spent time in local church ministry after that. And that has never gone away, even after leaving that ministry, going back to psych school and working in Christian psychology ministry for most of the last 30 years. I am a whole person, and I bring this whole person, including my spiritual self, into the relationship that I have with those who seek services from me. And as with everyone here, I can't, and I do not impose myself on others. Sometimes I won't even disclose a lot of myself to others, depending upon the situation. However, that doesn't take me out of the equation and the impact that God has had on my life.
I consider myself a vessel for God to use in order to counsel clients through me. I believe that all my appointments are basically God ordained, at least most of them. There's been a couple I've questioned, but I wasn't sure who sent them in. But anyway, I think that God sets up my appointments, and I've oftentimes talked to him about how good of a secretary he is for me. And I enjoy my job. I feel very blessed to be a Christian counselor. I feel very blessed to work for Meier Clinics. And I am very blessed to be out in the area that I'm in, because most everybody out there is Christian. So they appreciate this ministry. And as a result of my working at Meier Clinics, I have grown as a Christian myself. You can't help but grow in your own walk with Jesus when you're able to help people with their spiritual issues and the problems that they're coming in with.
Yeah. So I've heard you say in the past how amazing God is as a secretary to setting you up with appointed appointments, divine appointments with the people that you work with. So you definitely are a vessel with that, Angie.
Thank you.
Joanne.
And it's amazing to me because clients will say, they're coming to see me at the clinic to receive help and counsel and talk to me. But yet what actually happens is it really works both ways. Yes, God does set up those appointments. I firmly believe that too, Angie. and more happens in those 60 minutes or 45 minutes or however long that session is than what we could ever plan for or even probably be fully aware of. It's pretty awesome.
Joanne, just to spin off of that, this is Kim Hill. I would say that I don't think I ever realized the privilege and the blessings that I would hold in my own life with being able to partner in so many different relationships. That here I thought I was there to encourage and guide and impact in these positive ways. But I will honestly say that at the end of every day, I go home challenged and convicted about areas that I need to continue to grow in. There are people that I have had great respect and admiration for how they've handled some very difficult situations in their marriages and family life, and the resilience that I have obviously witnessed. And I am humbly reminded on the areas that I still want to continue to grow in, and certainly, as I said, truly leave every day work very convicted about areas that I need to be more loving and more patient and more communicative on, and more faithful as well. And again, asking for more support on. So humbly reminded every day. So that is a beautiful part of being a psychologist, is just the whole growth experience and the challenges.
Right. Well, thank you all for being here. And I'm certainly grateful to Dr. Paul Meier and to Nancy Brown for the effort that they have put into building Meier Clinics. And I am grateful for the time that each one of you were able to give today for this interview and for this conversation. I'm proud of working with amazing colleagues. So thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this podcast. Tune in next time for another engaging discussion on relevant mental health topics. If you have any questions about Meier Clinics, please visit our website at meierclinics.com. That's MEIER clinics.com, or call us at 888-7-CLINIC. Don't forget to leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or any of your favorite podcast apps. And please note that we are a member of and produced by Mental Health News Radio Network, MHNR network.com.